Yes.
All right, so welcome again, Sally, Jackie, to the Zoom room. Great to have you here. So we'll just dive into our session, shall we? Just going to get the live stream going, and then okay, so and then I'll just share my screen. Let's go straight into teaching for today. Okay, so there we go. Let's share my screen. Okay, so if one of you can read that quote, that'd be great.
Yeah. You're not merely a person, so inside your heart, I am the self.
Just Jackie, start again, and can you direct your? It's not quite picking up your voice.
You are not merely a person, so inside your heart, without doubt, I am the self, imperishable, unlike the body, unborn, unlike time, unchanging, unlike form, imperishable. Here you have no enemies, and you are never a victim. Far, far away are such thoughts. How beautiful you are the beloved of God, child of the Absolute. Honor yourself, for self-honoring beyond ego is the way of God. Oh, that's me.
Rigi. And there's actually a meditation if you want to listen to it. If you click that, it'll just open up his meditation. So he's a Jamaican. I don't know if you know much about him. Jamaican spiritual teacher. He was taught by the Indian sage Papaji. He was called. He was one of the disciples of Ramana Maharshi, who was in the pure non-dual tradition of Advaita Vedanta. So Ramana just woke up at 16. He just went into a kind of super conscious state of samadhi and pretty much stayed there the rest of his life. He's known as the sage of Aranchala because he went to a sacred mountain and spent most of the rest of his life there. Eventually his followers built an ashram, and a lot of Westerners came and got guidance from him. And really Ramana just talked about the self. He didn't talk about God as much as the self. And he said, the truth is that there's only one self. And if you will inquire, you will find that self is there. So people would come to him and he would just say, well, they tell him the story. And he'd say, who suffers? Who's the one who's suffering? It was a direct inquiry. And he would help them to see that the falsity of that suffering self and see beyond it into the self, and then just immerse in silence. Because he was so present in that, he would just pull people into that presence, that silence, and say there's nothing really to say other than ask a few questions, who suffers, and then go into the silence, and then the silence does the work and shows the person the falsity of their previous illusion. And Papaji, who'd in fact, I'll show you this, quite interesting. So this is how he described it. So maybe Sally, if you can read that. Then he looked at me intently. So he's telling the story, telling Ramana about the story of his search for the self. Then this was his experience.
And he looked at me intently. I could feel that my whole body and mind were being washed with waves of purity. They were being purified by his silent gaze. I could feel him looking intently into my heart. Under that spellbinding gaze, I felt every atom of my body being purified. It was as if a new body were being created for me. A process of transformation was going on. The old body was dying, atom by atom, and a new body was being created in its place. Then suddenly I understood. I knew that this man who had spoken to me was in reality what I already was, what I had always been. There was a sudden impact of recognition as I became aware of the self.
So interesting personal account of transformation, and it just shows you, how it works. The miracle worked in that instance, because the teacher, in that case Ramana, was so present to the self and to oneness that he pulled his disciple into that and gave him an insight into his true nature, that he realized he was that self. He already was that. He'd been seeking for what he already was, and it needed someone who already was that to reveal it to him, to show him, what he already was. And that's what we're all trying to do.
It's a bit like mindfulness, really, because you're in the present moment. That thing that you teach about where you're just, I don't even know how to come in on the conversation, about just being present with the sensation. And then every time a thought comes in, you let it go. And that's like cleaning yourself. So then it's purified and you're in a different state. Then you've vibrationally changed to become more of the truth, or all of the truth that you are. So is it just, when you're asking who suffers, is it just a self-inquiry that makes you become present?
Yeah. It's a tool to reveal the truth, and first of all, you've got to reveal the lie. It's the same methodology as the Course. Interesting, because Ramana was pre-Course. He had nothing. The Course came 20 odd years after his death, so it had nothing to do with it. But very, very similar teachings. So the Advaita Vedanta tradition was that he was really probably the best teacher of it in the 20th century. Was about revealing the false. The inquiry was who suffers then. So let's reveal that, and through that recognition, then reveal the true self. And in the same way with the Course, let's look at what's false, reveal the ego. That's what he spends most of the Course doing, so that you can transcend it and you can go into the one self, into that actual experience of the one self, which therein lies God. So the self is the Christ. That's why Yeshua's talking about the Christ. Today's lesson talks about the Christ and God being one, because he understands that self becomes the point where you can recognize yourself, and the experience of oneness will come in, as he's described here, and you connect with that source through the self. So Christ leads you to God, in other words, just different terminology, but exactly the same process in another tradition that has nothing to do with Christianity at all. It goes way before Christianity. Advaita Vedanta goes back thousands of years. It's the original teaching of India in the Vedas, which then became the foundation of religions like Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism, and they all got devolved and usually made into some kind of dualistic belief. Certainly Hinduism, Buddhism less so, but also versions of Buddhism. They depart from that because that's what the ego wants to do. It wants to corrupt the truth. So Bill Thetford talked about well, let's just finish this. So Pure Knowledge tells us clearly what we are and what we are not, distinction with which you should be familiar now. So that's the fun. It's this or it's that. And Ramana was very clear. It's the self, and then there's the not self, and whatever's not coming from the self is illusion. Maya, illusion, and that needs to be let go of or discarded in order to reveal the self. Exactly the same idea as forgiveness. You've got to let go of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence to reveal the truth of who you really are. And that's what Yeshua is asking us to do continuously in his mind training lessons. It's really self-inquiry, isn't it? You're asked to go look within, look at what's true, look at what's false, and make a choice for yourself to let go of what's false so you can reveal the truth. So the same process. It's really, that's why Bill Thetford, who typed Helen Schucman's handwritten notes to create the original Course in Miracles manuscript that was eventually published, called A Course in Miracles the Christian Vedanta in this interview. Definitely worth a read if you haven't read it yet. There's some really good stuff in here about the course and its origins, and he was really the first proper student of it, because Helen Schucman was the scribe, but she didn't really get it. She didn't really accept it. She knew, obviously she'd scribed it, so she knew the teaching, but she didn't accept them because her ego was getting in the way. And where he did, he came to a point at the end of his life where he was kind of quite luminous and transparent, and there wasn't really much ego going on. So he was probably the first proper student of the course who actually applied the teachings to transform his life. And he called it the Christian version of the Vedanta in this interview. So, referencing it to the Advaita Vedanta, which is really the top of the Eastern tree of spirituality, and equating it and saying, well, it is actually the same thing. He just uses different language, got the idea of forgiveness. I think the metaphysics maybe a bit more comprehensive. In the course, he talks about, how the illusion came about, tiny mad idea leading to the split in the mind, the understanding of guilt, psychological idea of projection. I think that's all quite certainly explicitly stated in the course. In Advaita, I think it's there, but not necessarily as explicit. You kind of have to go to a teacher or something to get it, because it was originally an oral tradition, and there isn't a course in Advaita that's been written by a master, as far as I'm aware. So you would just go to a teacher of it, and then you get the teachings in person. It was an oral tradition. Whereas with the Course in Miracles, he's put the best of Advaita Vedanta into a book, and he's a course which we can study and practice, and put in some Western psychological concepts, meeting us where we are in the intellect. I think too many people in the West would struggle with Ramana's approach. Is very direct, and he just goes, well, who suffers, and then go into the truth. It's so simple. Just go into the silence. And that probably worked. And in his presence, it probably would have worked, because he's just so present in that he would pull you into it. But if you don't have a master with you, then Yeshua knows it's going to take a lot of unwinding of the mind. You've got to really look at your stuff, and that's what he gets us to do all the time in the course, with all the lessons and the teachings. So okay, that's interesting background information. I think it gives some context to what A Course in Miracles is, and where it comes from, and where it fits in the sort of spiritual world. And it's at the top of the ladder. It doesn't get higher than a pure non-dual teaching. So all roads eventually lead there. But if we lay aside all of that and we focus on the advice that Mooji gives us in this quote, which is to honor our true or Christ self in a humble way that's beyond our ego or separate self concept. And you might say, well, how do I do this? So I can recommend listening to that meditation. It's very very beautiful, but we can do our own version of it as well. I'll guide you through something that's going to take you into that state, because in the end it's an experience. What we're talking about here is experiential. The words are pointers. So Mooji's using words very well in this meditation to point you into the state and take you into that state. So you have an experience of the self directly. Because if you experience it once, then your ego is never going to be the same again, because you've been shown that there's another self, there's another reality there. And often then that's when the search starts for people, the journey, because okay, I've experienced that, I can't deny that, I want more of it. And then they go on a spiritual search to find it and really reveal it and stay rooted in it. And often they'll hang out with a guru like Ramana or Mooji or to get it, because they have it, and then the guru sort of can help facilitate that person getting it. But the danger is that they don't do the work themselves. They go, oh, guru, the guru is doing it for me. Whereas actually any true guru will say, it's in you. What I have is exactly what you have. Go find it for yourself. You don't need me, really. I'm just an example of that which you already are. And they might be able to help you awaken to that, as we saw in this description. So there's no doubt that Ramana's presence and his gaze and that still silent presence just looking upon him was then a catalyst for his transformation and his awakening into that self, to give him the experience of it, which then transformed his life. He was never the same again, and he became a teacher in the same tradition, who then passed it on to Mooji and various others. And so it spreads, and now we're getting the many people have got the teachings of Mooji from this ancient Advaita tradition. Okay, so any comments, questions about any of that?
So what kept coming up in my mind was about I'm in this room that I call a meditation room, and I meditate in here, and this other guy meditates in here as well, teaching TM. And after he's been in here with people, there's a deep stillness in the room, really deep. There's no sound in it. So is that just heightened presence? Doesn't really feel like oneness to me, but it feels very still. And being in the stillness is lovely. After he's left the stillness here. How does that work? I mean, is the opposite of stillness ego chatter, ego thoughts, and that once he's cleansed the room, he does a little ceremony to cleanse it. Once he's cleansed it with his guru and that energy that he calls in, he's eradicating all ego thought. So then when I walk in it afterwards, it's just like no energy.
It's a field of energy, isn't it? It's like it's been affected by the people who've been there. It leaves some of that stillness behind. And stillness is oneness. There's no it's the essence of oneness, because in oneness nothing happens. It's only still. Nothing ever changes, nothing moves. As Mooji says here, it's the unborn, unlike time, unchanging, unlike form, imperishable. So Ramana's, he would just say, well, my best teaching is stillness. Just sit with me in silence, and that, that's all I have to teach you. And because he was so rooted in that, he would bring people into that still state, in which state they would then have an experience of the self and oneness. And go, oh wow, that's what it is. So it's the same, yeah. I mean, it's all the same. Maybe it's interesting you say it's not oneness. Why do you say that?
Doesn't feel like the experience that I've had.
Yeah. So what was the difference? I'm interested. I mean, it's just
the silence when you come in after he's done it is deadening silence. It's like being in a soundproof room.
Yeah.
My oneness just feels expansive. But like there's no edge to it. Maybe he's made the room a container for the meditation. Maybe he's put a boundary around it in some way, but it doesn't feel so extensive. It doesn't feel
expansive. More like
so expansive.
More like a sanctuary. It's a sanctuary rather than
like a closed box. It's like in the box of the room, I can feel it, but when I step out into the hallway, I don't feel it. When my experience of oneness is it's everything, it's just your perception of everything. So it does feel slightly different to me, but yeah, it was really strong while you were talking about Muji and
mm,
really strong, like, oh, what is that? What is that? That I need
mm,
my self-inquiry. And today I feel very drawn to doing presencing groups again, where we just sit in the present moment together. And I was
mm,
thinking, oh, I wonder if that's all leading me to investigate that stillness more.
mm,
I don't
mm,
know. Just saying words, don't know what they mean.
mm, mm,
It's like there's something there that you've just said that's
mm,
brought up in it, a self-inquiry. Like,
mm,
so when I'm in presence with a group, people quite often can't be present. Their mind is a bit busy and they want to go into an ego talking about it. But the presence that I like is just, if something inspirationally arises, then you share it. But otherwise, you just hold the space for the group.
mm,
But that feels very different to what he demonstrates to me and what my oneness is.
mm.
My oneness, like I
My
own
oneness.
it. My oneness is different to anyone else's
My experience of oneness. Yeah. So,
I do that other oneness.
the other, yeah, the alternative school of non-duality. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, some interesting points there. There's difference in experience, these different paths, and this is why people say, "Oh, well, mine's different from yours. You know, my part's better," or, because it's a different perspective. It'll give you maybe a different experience. So what the TM guy is doing is maybe sealing, kind of sealing it and going, okay, well, we'll create a safe space and sanctuary rather than sort of expanding. But that silence is still a portal into the same thing.
Mm.
So maybe next time he comes, try, okay, well, let me go and just sit in this silence and let me find the same oneness there, because it's there.
Mm.
It's just perceptual. There's maybe a little perceptual block or something in you. It's a portal. Silence is a portal into oneness, probably the most effective one. Just sitting in silence and quietening the mind. This is what any meditation technique is really about. Just, well, that takes you into the experience of it, doesn't it? The opposite of the stillness is the busyness of the mind. So when the mind is thinking a lot, then the stillness is not there. That's Maya, that's illusion. The ego, he says at the end of the meditation, just be vigilant, because the ego will come, Maya will come, and it will start playing its tricks and starting to get you to think thoughts, and the busyness will come, and the answer is to return to the stillness. And just go beyond that. Say who suffers and who's thinking. That's the question. Who's actually thinking now? So this path of self-inquiry can be very helpful. Who's actually thinking that thought? Have a fear thought. I'm anxious about the future. Who's actually thinking that? Actually, that entity that's thinking it isn't even real. And that just collapses it. You go, well, there's no substance to the thought then. So that it's a direct self-inquiry into the nature of reality, and then collapsing what's false, which is letting go of forgiveness. Which is really what Yeshua is trying to train us to do. He's saying you look at it, you inquire, and if it's false, you realize that this is just a false idea, false belief, false thought coming from this non-existent entity. So I collapse it, I let it go. I recognize the falsity of it. And then it's like poof pop, I popped the bubble. I can't think that thought and feel that feeling anymore, because I've seen through it. It's an illusion, it's false. And so that's what we're doing. We're just popping these bubbles all the time onto it with the Course. Bubble of thought arises. Oh, we wanted to believe in it. And then he's saying, well, do the inquiry. Look at it from this perspective of, the Holy Spirit, Christ, which is the self. And it just pops. It can't sustain against that presence. It just, because it was just, when kids blow bubbles, it was just a bubble, like one of those bubbles floating. It's so insubstantial. You got caught up in the bubble, and within the bubble, it seems to be real, but actually there's nothing to it. And it just requires a pop. And then it's gone, it disappears. And what's left is just the emptiness. Spacious awareness. which then, you know, that awareness with no bubbles is the truth. There's no bubble of thought at all, then you'd be in the truth. So another way of visualizing this, if you want to put a visual image to the, you know, the illusion, is that we got caught up in a thought bubble. The tiny mad idea has pulled us into this bubble of thought, and we caught up in the bubble, and all of this stuff going on here in the red boxes and the red arrows is a little thought bubble. But that thought bubble has become so real to us and blown up to such gargantuan proportions that we now think that the thought bubble is our reality. And the universe is that thought bubble, you know, the whole universe. And now you're caught up within the thought bubble looking, and you can't see beyond the thought bubble, right? So it encompasses you, right? And he's asking us to prick as these little thought bubbles arise in our minds, to prick them, because ultimately that's going to collapse the whole thing. The entire thought bubble collapses, and you realize that it was a very flimsy veneer over reality. It never really existed. It was just this kind of illusion, like a film. I mean, you can look at that film, and it reflects light, and imagine if you were inside the bubble, it might appear to be quite real. Oh, and it's reflecting light, and I can't really see clearly. It's my vision's obscured. But I pop the bubble, and then what's left is just the air, just spacious awareness. And that's what this is taking us into. Ultimately popping that one thought bubble of separation. That idea was what blew the bubble up, and now we've got stuck in the bubble. And the way out of it is to realize that it was the thought that produced the bubble, that blew the bubble, was just a crazy, tiny, mad idea, a wish for nothingness, a desire for nothingness and pain and suffering and chaos, that really has no substance. You don't want to blow that bubble anymore. We want to just be in the spacious awareness, which requires you do nothing because it's already there. You see, you don't have to blow a bubble, you don't have to pop a bubble, you just have to be what you truly are. It requires no effort at all, actually.
That ties in very nicely with what I felt this morning. We went round somebody's house today, and she got a cattery in the garden, and when we were in the cattery, I could feel the bubble that we were in, and then we went into the garden, I could feel this other bubble we're in, and the belief systems and the thought patterns around it were very different, because when she was with the cats, she loved them, and there was a lot of nurturing going on, so it felt very loving. And then in the garden, it was like I'd stepped into her big bubble of belief system, and the outside of it, you know, like the bubble is often got all multicolors on it, and I saw it like it was a distorted view of the world. So as she was standing in the garden talking about her distorted view of the world, I could have been in the bubble with her, seeing it from her view, but I was actually stepped out looking at her belief system, going, you know, no, that's not my bubble. You have your bubble. That's not true. And it was very interesting. I don't know if you noticed it. Her beliefs were quite strong, and they were very fast, and they were very she was determined to keep these belief systems going, that she was a separate person and everyone else had disappeared and nobody else was around, and I'm like looking around going, no, that's not true. That's really not true. That's not what you've got such a limited view. But it was really interesting because I could step in the bubble with her and have joined her in that illusion, but I was outside the bubble. So it's interesting. You should talk about bubbles.
Well, there we go. It's all, and you actually had that, feeling this morning. That's how it goes, isn't it? With these causes, synchronicity. But if you joined her, you see the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy would have been, I join her in the bubble. Oh, poor you. I make the bubble real, and I'm believing in that same delusion. So she's pulled you into her bubble. And empathy is like, okay, I can see where you're at, but I'm outside of your bubble. I'm not playing that game. I don't believe in it at all. So empathy can pull her out of the bubble. Sympathy will just join her in the bubble and enslave you into the same belief system. And if you can just be that witnessing presence of illusions, there's forgiveness there, isn't it? There's a letting go. You haven't believed it. I'm just the witnessing presence. I don't believe the beliefs. I don't believe the story. I can witness it with empathy. Understand, you lost in your dream, but I don't necessarily have to do anything about it. Did you say anything? Did you? Maybe not. You just left to, okay, that's your dream, and it's okay. If you want to believe that. If you feel inspired to, then maybe you say something to help, but maybe it's not your place to. Maybe she's not ready for it. She'll just, resist it. So then you get intuitively guided, don't you? It's like, okay, I don't feel like it's appropriate to say anything. So it's fine. I'll just stay in my, see, the truth is never threatened. Nothing real can be threatened. I'm not threatened by this illusory thought bubble because I just see that it's totally illusory. I can't threaten the truth at all. I'm just, because I'm so rooted in the truth that there's no threat. I don't need to defend this, irrespective of what someone else is, saying or doing. So you're actually, although you observe it, you're not in duality. You're actually in the non-dual truth, observing the illusion and just seeing it for what it is. It's total illusion. It's not the opposite of truth. It's just nothing. It's non-existent. And that's how you collapse duality, if you can apply this.
And how it looked to me was that obviously oneness was everything, and she just got this little part of it, this little ball that she was living in that had all these health issues and all these problems and all these worries and all this separation. But it was so graphic to me today that there was she in this little prison, and there was all this out there that she didn't know or couldn't see or wasn't wanting. Yeah, it's funny that you should talk about it today, just after that experience.
Well, funny that, eh?
Yeah, funny,
that's
isn't
how it works. That's how it works. That's the magic you talked about, isn't it? The synchronicity. It's like, well, somehow we all tapped in, and then I'll bring in something that's helpful and matches your experience because it's one mind doing it, really. So you actually start to learn, well, I can't be separate and alone, because that's just so uncannily weird that Jono should happen to mention bubbles when that's exactly the experience I had this morning. That's an example of synchronicity. So then you start connecting the dots and go, oh, actually, well, maybe we're all connected. Maybe Yeshua's right. Maybe the master's all right. We're all connected. And, these are just showing us, these little miracles or synchronicities are showing us that we are all connected. In a way, I mean, you couldn't explain it. Well, how's that? I mean, what are the odds of that? Well, quite slim, I'd say. I don't think I've talked about thought bubbles before, ever. Have I?
No.
Maybe once or twice. I can't remember. But, for some reason, that then comes up and get inspired to talk about it. And the teaching happens to be exactly, the one that's going to bring it up. It's extraordinary, really, how it works, but the extraordinary becomes ordinary. Maybe I can include that in the marketing, extraordinary, ordinary. It's an extraordinary, ordinary life. You're not doing it, you're not having to go and do anything extraordinary on the level of form, because that's not what it's about. Just your experience becomes quite extraordinary. You start seeing the synchronicities and the miracles and tapping in. And these ordinary experiences become extraordinary because you reinterpret them with the Holy Spirit. And so they become the catalyst for your awakening and taking you into the depth of your own being, which is an extraordinary experience in time and space. In fact, it's the most extraordinary experience. Enlightenment, it doesn't get more extraordinary than that. Everything else is just pales into insignificance by comparison with knowing who you really are. So can you see that, the Advaita idea of just who suffers, who's the self, pointing you to the self, is exactly the same as A Course in Miracles. There's no difference. Yeshua calls it the Christ. They don't call it the Christ in the Advaita tradition. They call it the self. But he does use the term as well. He uses the self. The self that I have is the Christ. It's that self concept, higher self concept, shall we call it, that unites you with pure formless awareness. So that's what I wanted. Let's just go. So hence the Trinity. There's the self sitting between this pure formless awareness, perfect oneness, where it's just a pure experience. There's no idea of a self even, and this self now sits between that and the world, the illusory world, and the self can now be present in the world, but not, it's in it, but it's not of it. So like, this morning you were in it, you were experiencing, talking to the lady, seeing her thought bubble, but you weren't of it. It doesn't affect you. You remain the transcendent self, just able to witness it. And that is then true perception, or that's the Holy Spirit's perception, Christ's vision, true perceptions. That's the miracle. Don't get sucked into the thought bubble. Just stay out of it. Stay rooted in yourself. That's the miracle in that moment.
There might be something else that I've experienced then, is like, I had this experience once when I was sitting outside the local train station, and all these people were coming off the train and they were all in their own little bubbles. And I don't know, at the time I described it as though their soul wasn't there. It was just a walking entity without a soul, no soul connection. And they were all coming off the train, in masses of people from the London train. And I was thinking about how they were with each other, but not with each other, because they're all isolated in their own belief systems and their own little world.
Their own thought bubble.
They were in their thought bubble, they were in their mind, and they were just on like remote control to get home, take that, the body is being taken home. But they weren't awake enough to know anything else. They were shut in their world. So maybe that's why I'm not very keen on London, because when you're in the middle of the centre of London, everyone's in their little thought bubbles, and they're all kind of there's a real denseness to their beliefs, their energy, and so they're all like bumping up against each other when they're walking along the street, but there's no connection, there's no transference of awareness between people. They've got their story, he's got his story, she's got her story, but when I go there, it's just like you're walking through a dense energy of non-connection, and it just feels, in a way, it feels a bit lonely in a way, because no one's connecting.
Well, that's the irony of it. You've got 9 million people, you're in a big city with so many people, and yet people are lonely. Like, how's that possible?
Yeah.
But it is, if you walk around in your own, self-created prison, which is the thought bubble, not able to really feel the connection, extend, then that's what you feel. But what I would say to you next time you go is, it's there, you can feel it if you open to it. So it's like, go beyond the illusion of the bubble, prick the bubble, because that's just the ego veil of illusion that's cast over this dense, it's a field of mind energy, isn't it? You feel it, you like step into it. It's like, whoa, I'm in the matrix here. I'm in London. These big cities are really the matrix. So it's maybe a bit more challenging, but hey, you're advancing in your spiritual development. So it's like, okay, we'll go to London for a day as a spiritual exercise, and go, okay, I'm going to step into this field, and I'm going to really try, just be the self, just the pure, present, eternal self that is not affected by any of these stories. I'm outside the bubble, even though I'm in the matrix, but I'm not of the matrix. So if you remember Neo, he awakens and then he goes back into the teeming city, right? That matrix, whatever city that was, and yet he's not affected. He flies. He makes the call to the ego, really, the architect. He's saying, well, I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. And then the final scene of the movie is he just flies, and he just transcends it all. He raises himself above all that. So he's the awakened one. He's not affected by that dense field of mind energy, which everyone believes in, because he knows that it's not true. So that's it, to be a good exercise. Go and, okay, day in London, go shopping or doing, do whatever, but just, okay, I'm just present, I'm in awareness, and I'm actually seeing beyond the illusion. I'm seeing beyond the thought bubbles, and I'm seeing everyone as the same self as me. Everyone's the Christ. So their bubble is actually nothing. I'm just seeing beyond the bubble. So I'm popping the bubble all the time in every perception, every interaction I have with people. I'm popping that bubble. Do you see what Yeshua is asking us to do? That's why he says, I see the Christ. Interesting, because this guy clearly still had some work to do, in my opinion. Have a look at what he says here. So this is the so-called enlightened guru, and then he's saying in this interview, he's saying, so he a lot of the people he's actually condemning, saying, well, they didn't really get it. Many people have heard you say, I've not given my final teachings to anyone. What are these final teachings, and why are you not giving them out? And he says, nobody is worthy to receive them. Oh, my goodness me. Because it has been my experience that everybody has proved to be arrogant and egotistic. Wow. Okay. Well, then you're seeing the ego, aren't you? And you're not seeing beyond the ego into the truth, because actually everyone is worthy to receive the truth because of who they really are. So there's a judgment which maybe he never got over in his life. I know there were some people, this guru, who distanced themselves from him, because maybe there was still that egoic judgment, like the spiritual superiority. I'm so enlightened, and you bunch aren't worthy. You're just ignorant and unworthy of the final teaching. So I'm not going to, deign to give you these because you're not worthy. But that's denying his own true self, because they are his self. And it's denying the very help that he was asking for. He wasn't worthy when his master gave him this, but the gift was given freely, and that's why he had a transformation. His master didn't look at him and say, you're not worthy, you miserable sinner. He looked at him with this pure gaze and just said, I see you as you are. Even though you're not quite there yet, I see you as the Christ that you are anyway, because that is the truth. And then he pulled him into that state. But he clearly hadn't quite got to Ramana's level, because Ramana would never have said that. Ramana was absolutely pure, pristine self. That's all he was. There was no judgment at all. People who were in his presence said, amazing, just pulled you into this totally non-judgmental state where you felt loved, because there's just this pure self looking at you, as he said, under that, that purifying gaze. I just felt like I was being, purified. And a lot of people speak about their experiences with genuine enlightened people as, this kind of thing. It just because they see the guru is seeing them as totally innocent. They don't see the sin, they don't see the guilt, they don't see the unworthiness. They see the truth in that person, and they then allow that person to accept it for themselves and take them into that state, which is what he's asking us to do with his teaching, isn't it? So even if someone's in their deluded thought bubble, you as the true self don't see that. You see them as the Christ, the purity that they are, and then you can pull them into that. Maybe not, depending. You don't know. But at the very least, you are in that state. So you are not then pulled into versions of their bubble and giving that ego illusion a reality. And then you can be anywhere. Ramana could go into the middle of London and he wouldn't be affected, because he's totally rooted in himself. There's no being affected by the matrix. So that's the ultimate state we want to get to. So it could be like a little test you do every 6 months. Go to London, do a day. Okay, how did that feel? I still felt influence. I was still affected. I come away feeling like a little bit dirty, or a little bit like, not as clear as I was when I left. Okay, you still haven't let it go. But can you go into that field of energy and be completely rooted in the self, unaffected by any of it? And if you can, then I'd say you're enlightened, because that's quite a dense field, isn't it? You go to any city like that, 9 million minds in separation. It creates this kind of dense matrix, really. It's a matrix of thought that then gets expressed on the physical level and, in the systems that run the city, in the behaviors. But in the end, it's a thought system that you're going into. And that's why, if you recall in the Matrix, the scenes were always in the cities. They didn't take countryside, and they went, no, the scenes in the city, and that's because that's the height. That's the epitome of the Matrix in a dense city with all this mind energy, and you're literally like blocked in these high rises, and it's a prison for the mind. And our job is to free ourselves from the prison by finding our true self. Anywhere, everywhere. So the person who's convinced that they are the separate self, you look at them with that gaze of the self, just love, just the recognition that they are you and you are them. There's the love that may just awaken them. You might find if you do that and you go to London like that, maybe the two of you do together, see just how different your experience is if you do it that way. Day out in London, and like you might find some really strange synchronicities, miracles, stuff showing up. People might find people going, what, because they'll feel the presence. And some people are allergic to it. The ego is allergic to it. So you might get some like, oh, you're a bit weird. But then there might be people who are looking for it, who really resonate, and you have these conversations where they just open up and you take them out of the bubble into the oneness, and for a moment, for a time, you pop the bubble for it. Yeah, so it's an interesting analogy, really, the bubble idea. And it's like, okay, well, you go around, you're not in a bubble, you just clear, pure awareness, and as the avatar in that state, you can pop all the bubbles. And you can show them, as Neo said, you can show them what the Matrix doesn't want them to see. It doesn't want them to see their self, who they really are, because that will free them from the whole story and the prison of the Matrix. Okay, so any other thoughts, questions, comments? All right, so let's have a look at our lesson, shall we? We got till 3. Let's dive into the lesson, then do. In fact, we probably. Oh, there's Aurelie, just on time. Where are we? 3:54. Okay. So we've probably got time to have a look at this. What am I? Which is very attuned to the conversation we've just been having, because what am I is the self we've been talking about. Hi, Aurelie.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, welcome. You're just in time for the second part of the session. So I thought we'd read this What Am I? And then go into the lesson and do a meditation on it. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's good. I'm just joining for a little bit, because I don't know if I can join it for the whole session, but I'm just joining for a bit.
Okay, well, we can change the order a bit. Would you like to do a meditation now, rather than read this? Sally and Jackie have got until 3 o'clock, so
yeah, would be
great. We're going to read this, and then read the one paragraph of the lesson, and then go into a med. But I can do the meditation now if you like.
Yeah, if everybody is okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to stay for the meditation, so I've got half an hour. Personally, I'd like to do either the lesson or the What Am I, and then do the meditation after that.
Okay. Well, let's do the lesson, and then it's only one paragraph, and then we'll go into the meditation. How does that sound? And then if you need to leave, you can leave. Okay. So will you read that original and then the alternative version for us, Jackie?
We stand together, Christ and I, in peace and certainty of purpose, and in him is his creator, as he is in me. We stand together, my true self and I, in peace and certain purpose, and in myself is its source. They both are in me.
think the translation, these hims and his and he is, it gets a bit confusing, doesn't it? So in him is his creator, as he is in me. So is he talking about the creator there? Is he talking about the Christ, or both? But I think in the translation, it's just in myself is its source. So both are in me. That's what he's really saying. So when you connect with the self, then you connect with the source. So that becomes the root to the source. And that was exactly what Ramana would say. He said, don't go looking for God. Find the self that is the awareness. That is the ultimate seer. Find that, and then you will find God. So in other words, your route to God is to find the Christ, or the true self, which is exactly what we were just talking about in the Holy Trinity idea. Find the self, and that connects you automatically with this source, pure formless awareness of perfect love, and also allows you to now perceive this illusory world, because the Christ can perceive, but it only has true perceptions, or Christ's vision. So you can interact in the world, but you can still be rooted in the oneness, in the source. So it's the bridge between the worlds, which is why it's useful to have the idea of the higher self. No self. The Buddhist idea was no self, which was interesting, because it's true, there's no self there. But then how do you interact in the world with no self? There's a problem, isn't there? So who's perceiving then if there's no self? It's pointing you to the ultimate truth, but not necessarily helping you in this world to be able to function. So in Advaita and in this Christian version of it, which is the Course, it gives you the Christ or the self to help you to operate this system, to be able to download this. It's like the step down. This is the highest frequency energy, and just like with electricity, it has to be stepped down to a transformer to be able to be used practically in households and so on, to a voltage that's acceptable, which is why you have the substation. So it's like this is the step down transformer through which now this can filter into the world, and you can be very useful, as we've seen with people like Ramana and Yeshua and so on, that they can really help to awaken people in the world, because they're rooted in that self. They can still interact in the world. They haven't just checked out. In pure formless awareness of perfect love, there's nothing. You're beyond the illusion completely. That's revelation. That's the state of revelation, which will come in time. But this course is directed at our time-space experience. So it's called the Course in Miracles, because the miracles are these true perceptions coming from our Christ self. Does that make sense? Okay, excellent. So let's read a very short paragraph, one paragraph, just to kind of point us into the state. So Sally, if you can read the first 3 lines of that, and then Aurelie can read the first three sentences.
My oneness with the Christ establishes me as your son, beyond the reach of time and wholly free of every law but yours.
Okay, and then do you want to read the alternative?
Oneness with my true self establishes me as your extension, beyond the reach of time and wholly free of every law but yours.
Okay, so Christ is the true self, Son is the extension of source. And so the true self is just the extension of that source, which is why when you connect with your true self, you're connecting with God. You connect with the fact that you're an extension, the present experience that you are actually the extension of this loving awareness, and you feel that beyond the reach of time, wholly free of every law but yours. Right? So beyond time and space, and all the laws the ego's made up.
Okay. Number 2, I have no self except the Christ in me. I have no self except the true self in me.
kind of self-evident, isn't it? How can I have another self? But what I like, if you say the true self, well, obviously, how can I have a false self as well? The false self's obviously not true, so it's non-existent. But we have to make it explicit to realize that. I have no self except the true self for me. It's like, duh, obviously. But he has to point out the obvious over and over again, because we have the illusion that we do have another self. And that's the whole problem, that splits our mind.
Number 3, I have no purpose but its own. I have no purpose but its own.
So that self, the only purpose that the self knows is to be itself. It's asking nothing of you except to be what you are. How easy is that? And yet, strangely, we find that so difficult. Isn't that just the weirdest paradox? How can you find it difficult to be what you really are? But we only find it difficult because we believe that we're something else, which is false. And so the difficulty then is in overcoming the false to reveal the truth and just be what we are. But actually, it's just so simple. And when you get to like a Ramana stage of enlightenment, he's just like, it's so simple. There's nothing to this. Then you probably looked around like, why are you all just totally confused? It's so simple. You just are what you are. I mean, like, is there any simpler teaching? And just be that. There's nothing else that's required. So all of the complexity of the ego's story and drama just drops away in the simplicity of this truth, doesn't it? It's like, okay, just be what you are. There's nothing to it. But to be what you are in the face of all the illusions that the ego's spinning, well, that's the challenge, isn't it? Because you're dealing with this bubble, this thought bubble, and your mind's kind of jacked into it, and it seems to affect you. And so it's like, doing the spiritual work to just know, like absolutely know who we are, no matter what seems to be happening, to know who you are. That's the work we're doing. Because then that's your refuge. You take refuge in that. That's your refuge. That's your safety. That's your security. That's your guidance. That's your peace. It's all there. And then if you're always there, you're invulnerable. It doesn't matter what slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Shakespeare termed them, come your way in the illusion. It doesn't affect you. You're imperturbable, undisturbable. Your peace is unshakable. Okay, so number 4, orally, will you read the original up there and then the alternative in the gray afterwards?
I'm gonna try because I'm reading from my phone and it looks very tiny.
Okay, I can make it bigger for you if you want.
Thank you.
Zoom it into 150%, shall we? How's that? Better?
No, on the phone it's not making big difference. So, but it's okay. I can zoom in and then just read. No, I cannot see the original text though.
Yeah, there we go. I'll just scroll up a bit. Is that better? Number 4, from number 4.
And he is like his father, and he is like his father, and it is like its source.
Oh, so the self is exactly like its source. Christ, the self is exactly like its source, which is why if we find the self, we find the source. Okay.
And thus must be one.
Must I be one?
Must I be one with the?
You?
Sorry. No, kids. It's better if you read it. If someone else read it.
Okay. Sally, will you do the honors?
Thus must I be one with you as well as him. So I must be one with you as well as myself. For who is Christ except your Son, as you created him? For who is my true self except your extension as you extend it? What am I except the Christ in me? What am I except my true self?
And again, he's stating the perfectly obvious. You go, well, duh. Obviously, you're your true self. You know, what can you be except what you are? But it needs a spiritual master to point that out to us, because almost everyone who's human doesn't know who they are. That's the extraordinary thing about this world. No one knows who they are. So everyone's wandering around in a delusion about themselves, not understanding who they are, which is the most foundational thing. Like who you are, everything comes from that. Surely that's your fundamental existence. And yet we don't know who we are. That's the crazy position the ego's put us in. And we're living in a world where no one knows who they are. It's bizarre, really. Couldn't make this stuff up. Well, we have made it up in a bad dream, but like who except a totally insane mind would invent a world where no one knows who they are? Everyone's wandering around trying to find who they are and looking in the wrong place. Looking in the external world for who they are, when who they are is right there in their own mind, hidden in plain sight. This is why I think in the Zen tradition they say when enlightenment is a joke. When you wake up, you realize the whole thing was just a joke that you played on yourself. How could you believe that you weren't what you were? And to awaken to that self is just so natural and obvious. So can you feel that? I can feel it. It's just it's like it's so present. It's there. Yourself is always there. It cannot be otherwise. There is really nothing else except that self, that awareness, because that self connects you with the awareness, which is your source. Pure formless awareness of perfect love comes streaming into your awareness through that self concept. Can you feel that? Of Course in Miracles terms, the Christ leads you to God. Okay, so good time to go into meditation, I think. Unless there's any other comments, questions on the lesson.
Already in meditation.
Yeah, it just takes. But what's amazing is how these words can take you there. Just a few words are pointers to a state of being that's transcendent. And you don't need a lot of words. Actually, the shorter, the better. That's why he's giving us just one paragraph, just a few sentences to take you in there. Okay, so just making yourself comfortable. So sitting comfortably in your favorite meditation posture. Feet shoulder width apart. Back straight. Cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. And the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle to lock the energy in. Pull the energy up the spine into your heart center. Put one hand in your heart and just bring your attention there into your heart. Breathe into that. You feel the presence of the self, of the Christ, the one self that you are. When you breathe that in and connect with it, feel the energy rising up, warm wave into the crown of your head. Pause at the top of the inhale. Now scan your mind and just notice any thoughts, any emotions, any body sensations. Particularly anything that feels negative or limiting, contracted, constricting, like a little bubble of thought you are trapped in. Just breathe into that. Breathe in this spacious awareness. Just pure, formless awareness. Pure, formless awareness. And in this awareness, these delusions cannot continue. So remind yourself that we stand together, my true self and I, in peace and certain purpose. And in myself is its source. So both are in me. So the self is the source of awareness itself. And this can only know itself. These delusions are just that, delusions. They have no effect at all. So just exhale on the truth of that and blow these bubbles away. They're just thought bubbles. Just blow them away with the breeze of your breath. So nothing to sit there really are. It's going, gone. Just prick the bubble. It pops and find you're in the truth. It's expressed in this lesson. So my oneness with the Christ establishes me as your son, says Yeshua. My oneness with my true self establishes me as your extension. Feel that you are an extension of this perfect love, pure formless awareness. Breathe it in. Every pore, every cell of your body is transformed in this oneness, like we read that account of Muji's teacher who'd come into this experience through Ramana's still silent gaze on him. Just purifies everything. You are the extension of pure formless awareness in yourself, beyond the reach of time and wholly free of every law but yours, tracing your source, this awareness itself. Awareness itself has no law except the law of we call love or oneness. The only law is to be one, to know itself as itself. So just sink into this self-realization. You are the self that is the extension of this awareness. So this awareness is your awareness. Say, I have no self except Christ in me. No self except the true self, the capital S, in me. True self in me is this awareness. Pure formless awareness of perfect love. Just complete and whole unto itself. Nothing else is required, nothing needs to be added, it needs to be removed. It's pure, whole, complete awareness. I have no purpose but his own. I have no purpose but its own. This self's own purpose is to know itself as itself and only itself. And so it is like its source. The self is like he, Christ, is like his Father. It's of the same quality, same likeness, because it's one awareness. Self is made out of pure formless awareness, which is the source of your being. Thus must I be one with you as well as him. So I must be one with you as well as my capital self. So we are one with our source and we are one with ourself. And the source and the self meet in our experience, and that is the mystical merging of the Christ, the Son with the Father, the source. And you feel it happening in you right now. You are one with this self. There is no split in your mind. There is no other identity. For who is my true self? Except your extension as you extend it. For who is Christ except your Son as you created him? Another way of saying that. Use whichever form works for you. For who is Christ except your Son as you created him? For who is my true self except your extension as you extend it? An extension of this awareness. It's ever present, it's eternal, it's happening all the time. It's never gone away, because without this awareness, you would cease to be. That's not possible. Your awareness cannot be destroyed. We shift and we change, we move in and out of bodies, we have different lives, different experiences. That's the play of form, Maya, illusion, the mind spinning itself into a dream world, believing it's a false self, spinning a dream, a little bubble of illusion. But beyond that is the one self, this pure formless awareness that expresses itself perfectly in the Christ or the one self that you are. So Yeshua ends with the questions: is what am I except the Christ in me? What am I except my true self? Seemingly an obvious question. What could I be except what I am? How silly to believe that we have another self. Self that is weak and limited and sickly and afraid, believes it's a victim of a cruel world, which it itself has made up to convince itself that it's correct, that it is a victim and it is unworthy of love. It is separated from its source. This is the ego, the false self-concept that doesn't exist, never was true, never will be true. Spun a world of illusions around your mind, a web of deceit and intrigue, a maze of complexity, a matrix from which there seems to be no escape. But yet there is. So just sinking inwards. Escape lies within your mind, and nowhere outside of you. Escape lies in identifying completely, wholly with this self, the Christ in you. So you say, I stand together with my true self. I am my true self. In peace and certain purpose. My only purpose is to be one with the self, to be as I am, and this will bring me peace. And in my true self is its source. So both are in me right now. So experience that oneness of yourself and your source as one awareness. You are that awareness. There is nothing else. Nothing else to think about, nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. The next couple of minutes, just surrender into the eternal, infinite, present nature of yourself. The next 2 minutes of deep silence. So just gently coming back. This very deep, connected state. Into an awareness of the body and the breath, senses in the world. But as you come back, you don't lose connection with yourself. You can never not be the self. It goes with you wherever you go. It is you. It's the very essence of your awareness, but just don't get confused by your sense perceptions. So as you come back, you do it in a very present way, very aware way, still connecting with this deeper awareness, not allowing the senses to take you out of that awareness. So you practice staying rooted in that awareness even while you're sensing, perceiving. And that is to be in the world, but not of the world. That is to have Christ's vision. So now on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. For 1, just breathing in. And noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. And the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just clenching your sphincter muscle. Gently squeeze that. Notice the energy rise up the spine. Notice an energy in your heart. You put one hand on your heart center and draw it up into the crown of your head. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. So once again, just scan your mind. Notice any thoughts, any emotions. So to notice emotion, you can scan the body. Any emotion shows up as a body sensation. So notice the emotion. Going on for you by noticing the body sensations. So that might show up as tension somewhere in your neck and shoulders, or a knot in your stomach, sinking feeling, extreme, nausea, sweaty palms, cold sweats, panic attacks. Come just from your thoughts. So just notice the subtlety and be willing to let it all go. Again, reminding yourself that we stand together, my true self and I, in peace and certain purpose, and in myself is its source. So both are in me. Right now, just exhale the truth of that, blowing away all illusions like a dark cloud. The breeze of your breath, it's going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And just rest in this deep peace and stillness for next few moments. Feeling the presence of the self still there, always there. So, count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching. The hands, maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, smell in your nose as you breathe in. Notice what you're hearing. Without judgment, so you don't judge any of these sense perceptions. They just come and they go, they rise, they pass away. Whatever they're showing you is ultimately false because it's changing. What's changing cannot be true. So why do you give them meaning then? Why do you interpret them as though they are real? So you just let them arise and pass away. You're just the witnessing self that allows your sense perceptions to arise and pass away. And that's how life goes. Sense perceptions rising and passing away. One experience and another, and they come and they go. None of it is permanent.
Please will you take the Morrison basket back?
And so on the count of 3, just open your eyes, look around, just taking a minute to observe whatever's going on for you. Look at any object from this perspective of the self that is unmoved, unshaken and unshakable. And you feel the same self, same presence that you hopefully connected with quite deeply in the last 25 minutes. It's everywhere. It's in everything. It underlies all of your sense perceptions. You look at another object, notice it's the same experience, the same self is there, same presence is there. Do that for half a dozen objects. And you notice that everything's the same. It's one experience, one self. It hasn't changed whether you're looking at a supposed table or a chair or a person or a wall or outside the window to the so-called external world. None of it matters. The self, who you really are, is eternal, infinite, always there, ever present, unchanging. I'll read Mooji's quote again. It's a beautiful quote. Reminds us of the truth. You're not merely a person. Say inside your heart to yourself without doubt, I am the self, imperishable, unlike the body, unborn, unlike time, unchanging, unlike form, imperishable. Here I have no enemies, and I am never a victim. These thoughts are far, far away. They are nowhere, and nothing. How beautiful I am. I am the beloved of God. I am an extension of pure formless awareness, perfect love. Child of the absolute, an extension of this absolute awareness. And so I honor myself as the self, the one extension of perfect love. Self-honoring beyond the ego. There's no sense of a separate self in this honor. Is the way of God, the way of perfect love. And so just anchor the state in, set the intention to stay there for the rest of the day. Practice today's lesson frequently. Listen to the short breath break I've sent you to do that, or follow the instructions in Telegram and email message to do it in under a minute. And that should keep you connected to the self, the Christ that you are, in a very peaceful, present state, just the pure witness of whatever's arising without being subject to it, not allowing the ego to take you away from the self for one moment. which is my wish for you. So that brings us to the end of the meditation. So, Sally, you still there? Shall we?
Yeah, still here.
So, shall we have a look at the insert?
Yeah,
Because we've still got some time. Is Jackie gone?
yeah, she's wandered off.
Okay, so let's have a look at stop that. Insert 5. Insert, sorry, 14. Five paragraphs. What am I? Which is very pertinent, I'd say, to today's lesson. So if you want to read.
I am God's Son, complete and healed and whole, shining in the reflection of his love. I am perfect love's extension, complete and healed and whole, shining in the reflection of its love.
Same
me.
message.
Yeah. In me is his creation, sanctified and guaranteed eternal life. His extension is honored and guaranteed eternal life in me. Okay. In me is love protected, fear impossible, and joy established without opposite. In me, love is perfected. Fear is impossible and joy is established without opposite.
So pointing us to a non-dual state.
Mm.
No opposites. You know, the opposite of fear is love. Opposite of love is fear, he says in the introduction, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. So pointing us into that all-encompassing state, which he referenced in the beginning of the course. But for a lot of it, especially in the first part of the workbook, it was really just dealing with the ego in the apparent ego duality. And now in these final lessons, he's pointing us beyond it, isn't he, into this deep truth. I'm saying that actually just go into this experience that's beyond opposite.
Mm.
And in that self, if you really root it in that, you do get a sense. There's no opposite to that, is there? You can't say there's an opposite to that state. So there really is no opposite to love. The opposite seems to be fear, a contracted state, but actually it's not really opposite. It's just a delusion. It's a denial of that state. It's a denial of the true self. But it's not opposite to it, really. And these kind of distinctions are important to make, because opposite, if you think of something as opposite, then you're forever caught up in duality. Or love has an opposite. My true self has an opposite. What I like about the self is, how can your self have an opposite? So what's the opposite of the self? No self? But actually no self is the self. It all points to the same thing. You know, the Buddhist idea of no self was pointing you to the same pure formless awareness of perfect love. So there is no opposite to the self.
Mm.
The ego is just a lack of that self. So it's formed out of, the darkness is just a lack of light. It's a lack of that awareness. That's all it is. It's not really opposite to it. It's an important distinction to make. Because then you realize there's no opposite. So all I've got to do is be in that awareness, and any sense of opposition will disappear. I don't have to overcome the ego. I just have to accept my true self as I am. That's all. And the ego disappears in that self. So then you're not stuck in struggling to overcome it and not succeeding. You're just rooted in your true self, and in that self there is no ego. It does not exist in that state.
I've got a subject bubbling up.
Yeah.
So when we were talking earlier about bubbles, what I was pondering after that was, why is it that I like space so much? I really enjoy the feeling of space. And it feels to me like there's no bubbles in it. There's no ego bubbles in it.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I can translate this to make any sense, but so let's say in the house, there's more stuff in the house because, you know, different people live here, and I make sure I'm clear on everything that's in the house. You know, I've got nothing against the furniture or the cushions or whatever's in the house. But if I have too much of it, it kind of feels like it pushes out my true self. It feels like the light isn't present. There isn't enough space for awareness.
Hmm.
And I'm testing it with myself and going, well, surely that's just a thought, that's just a belief. But there feels like something more fundamental here. Like when I have a space where there's no thoughts or beliefs in the space, it feels fantastic. It feels amazing. It feels lovely. It feels like that is God. That feels like it's true awareness.
Hmm.
But then if I'm in a space where there's clutter, there's stuff, it feels like it pushes my true self into a corner, kind of. And I can't really put it into words, but it's like, so all right, I understand that people bring their things into the house and it comes in with thoughts and beliefs attached to it and with emotions attached to it. So I can work through my perception of their stuff and let it go. But it still feels like this ego illusion of clutter somehow pushes into my stillness, pushes into my peace.
Hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It means,
So if it's an illusion, it shouldn't really be doing it, should it? How can it?
you're allowing the dream to affect the self and apparently be threatened. You know, you're saying pushing you into a corner. The self cannot be pushed into a corner unless you allow it. You know, so that's the ego then coming into your mind. So it's a trigger for you. The clutter is a trigger for your ego to arise, and that then pushes out the self, which is why you have that experience of feeling like, oh, my self's sort of being cornered. Well, that's impossible. Your self can't be cornered. It's infinite and it's eternal. So you're in a thought bubble, and your own thought bubble that the clutter is seemingly creating. It's really just a trigger for the ego. So the reason why you like space is because space is a natural in this world. Space is a sort of natural equivalent of the spacious awareness that is eternal. That's your true nature.
Mm.
Why people like going into nature and, you know, going out into an open space to meditate. It's easier. You feel, you know, you're not in that mind clutter. So I've got a practice for you. You meditate in the clutter. Clutter the room with as many objects that seemingly disturb your peace as possible.
Mm.
Put it all in there in your meditation room and sit there and be with it and go, okay, can I be in this infinite eternal state and feel that spacious awareness even with all the clutter present?
Mm.
Because that's a detachment from the physical senses. You see, your senses are telling you, oh, there's clutter, therefore I can't be in spacious awareness. Myself is now pushed out. That's still an attachment to the material world. Remember, none of it exists.
Mm.
Saying there is no world. So all of it is illusion. It's all an optical delusion of consciousness designed to convince you that the self is not true and there is another self, but actually your awareness is limited.
Mm.
So by going into it, you know, you go into the delusion and you look at it and you meditate on it. Do an open-eyed meditation with all the clutter you can find in the house. put it all there and go, okay, but can I find this transcendent self? And then you might close your eyes for a bit, find it, then open your eyes and go, well, can I find it?
Mm.
And you might find it challenging, because you're facing your illusion then, aren't you? But the quickest way out of the illusion is to go into it. Whatever's really pushing your buttons, you go into it and you undo it. So you might have to do, a number of sessions of that. But eventually it will give way and you'll go, oh, actually, I get it. I can stay rooted in the self irrespective. And that would be great preparation for going to London. See, it's like a warm-up because, London's like the big test. Okay, just put a few bits in your room. That's, less of a test. So can you stay rooted in the self, even in the clutter? And then, you can extrapolate that to everything, the external world. You go into town, you go into a city, people, in their dream world with their egos, very much in charge. Can you be unaffected by that? Just remain as the true self, because then you're bulletproof. You're absolutely invulnerable. There's nothing in this world that can touch you. And in every situation, you will bring that self, the Christ, into it, and you will then be the voice for sanity and peace and awakening. And your impact on people in the world will be amplified, be miraculous. You can stay rooted in that self.
Yeah, I know I can, but I don't like it. So there's a bit more work there.
You don't like what? The clutter?
Clutter, yeah. But I know I can meditate in it because I did it before. And I know exactly which room to do it in. And yes, I can. But maybe not eyes open. Maybe I haven't done it eyes open. That would be the difference.
Yeah, well, you could start off with eyes closed, get yourself into a state, then open your eyes and go, okay, can I, like exactly what we do in our meditations. Deep, we've been closed eyes, open eyes. I say, well, transfer the state. It's like the transferring of that inner state it's like the bridge into your everyday perception, which then you can hopefully hang on to. So then you open your eyes and you go, okay, so now look, do that exercise of just looking completely objectively on each bit of clutter.
Yeah.
And you go, can I just see that it's still the same awareness? I'm actually not seeing the clutter. I'm just seeing with the Christ that this awareness of myself is still there. And then I close my eyes and then you notice, is there a difference? And if there's no difference, then you've got it. If you open your eyes and you look on something and there's a reaction and you feel a contraction, then, hang on, I've still got an attachment to that object. Okay, well, I can carry on, meditating on this for days, weeks, until I clear it, until there's no attachment.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, it's all the same, isn't it? London town, busy supermarkets, clutter in the house. They're all just my resistance to thoughts. Yeah.
They're all illusion. And that's what all Yeshua's trying to teach us. An illusion is an illusion is an illusion. There's no word of difficulty in miracles because there's no hierarchy of illusions. One illusion is not bigger or more important or more difficult to let go of than another, although your ego is going to tell you that it is. But the Holy Spirit's interpretation of it is, no, everything's the same. It's exactly the same. It doesn't matter the size. If you remember, I think I sent out that Star Wars movie to watch a while ago, Empire Strikes Back. And in it, Yoda did you watch it? Yoda is doing the mind training of Luke. You remember, he's training him. And his starfighter has crashed into the swamp. And he's trying to lift it out with his mind. And he's going, oh, and he's straining, and it's too big. No, he says, Master, it's too big. It's too heavy, it's too big. And Yoda goes, no, it's only big in your mind. And he just, up it lifts. Perfect illustration of the concept. It's not big except in your thinking. There's nothing as big or small except your thinking makes it so. And then you have an obstacle accordingly. So that was the principle being demonstrated. There's no word of difficulty in miracles because there's no hierarchy of illusions. whether it's London, 9 million people in this, dense city and all the stuff going on and, mind energy, or it's just clutter in your bedroom or wherever in your house. It's the same. It's all illusion. It's all in the same order of reality. And that order of reality is unreal. So nothing real can be threatened. See, again, applying the introductory 3 lines to the course. Nothing real can be threatened. So myself cannot be threatened by any of these illusions. And nothing unreal exists. So what is unreal, and therefore it doesn't exist. End of. Okay, I don't make it that illusion more important and exists more than others. Because then you're into hierarchies, and that's the maze of complexity the ego spun. But actually there's only one truth, and you can hold to that no matter what. That's why this is such a simple course, because he's just saying, well, illusion is illusion is illusion, so treat it all the same, and then you'll be in the truth. If you start making exceptions, and it's like, oh well, that illusion's different, I've got to deal with that illusion differently, well, then you're in the ego's thought system, and we know that doesn't work. You'll never get out, because there's all kinds of rules for different situations, and we try to learn the rules, don't we, to kind of make us safe and find our way in life, and actually we're just enslaving ourselves more into the belief system that we separate by honoring those rules, those laws. A lot of religions do. I mean, the Judaism, they've got 600 and something odd rules in the Torah. I mean, how do you live your life by 600 different rules? It's not possible. You're going to forget. I mean, how can you? Most people struggle to remember 1 or 2. Everyone's 600. And now you've got to reference your Torah in the everyday life and go, oh, well, the rule for this is that, it's a totally kind of blocked, stuck thought system. But actually the only rule, he's giving you one rule. The rule is, if it's illusion, if it's in the material world, it's not real, so let it go. It's very simple. You can do that.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. It's just so radical, because he's saying, well, you got to do it all. There's no exceptions. The clutter in your home, London, shopping, supermarkets, watching the news, whatever it is. I mean, I don't watch the news, but where I'm staying, the lady does at the moment. And I just, so every now and then I hear it, but it's just like, okay, that's just illusion. I'm there as the witnessing presence, but I don't make it real in my mind. Just another illusion. Oh, that's a good one. Ego spun itself into that, twisting, turning, and you're going, everyone's watching an illusion. Isn't it extraordinary? We spend hours and hours watching illusions. Everyone's addicted to the news, which is totally illusory. It's false. But why are you listening to what's false and believing that it's true? When you could instead just meditate, have the experience of your true self, which transcends that and is beautiful and peaceful and loving and joyful. Instead, you want to watch these illusions that are just chaotic and confusing, and you will never find happiness and peace and joy there. And related to our topic of dementia, what you often find is people who do this, they watch the news obsessively and they very much addicted to the external world. They're the ones who suffer from it, because they haven't gone within, and it's a dark world. If that becomes your reality and you think that's all there is, then the ego is in charge, and then that's part of the ego's hijack of the mind, just believing in the external world, and then you get addicted to news and watching TV, and it's all external, isn't it? It's like, tell me what's television, tell me my vision. I'm giving the power to other people to tell me what my vision should be. Isn't that why would you do that? That's just totally disempowering. Watching this box and it's telling you what your vision is, like, just feed me with these illusions. It's extraordinary, but that's what the ego has invented. And in some ways, if you look at the digital age, we become more enslaved because of these devices. TV was the start. Everyone's suddenly now not thinking for themselves. They're just programmed by this device in in their living room that's beaming these images, which are selected by other people, created and selected by other people who are the masters of illusion, to show them what those people want them to see, the matrix. And now we've got it on, multiple devices. We've got computers and we've got phones and tablets and these screens that give us this information and these images that are all untrue, that enslave the mind into believing in the external world. So in some ways, I think humanity is more imprisoned than ever because of the digital age. But the flip side of that is the digital age can also be used by the Holy Spirit to awaken us in ways that weren't possible before, like this kind of technology and sharing the information that's about awakening. So it can be used by the Holy Spirit or by the ego, and it kind of amplifies it. Everything gets amplified. So that's why we're in an age of transformation, because of that amplification. Do you see that?
Mm.
So there's never been a better time to awaken in human history because of that. Was that one of those little moments?
Yeah, did you say? Yeah. Yeah.
Have to clip that out.
Yeah, definitely. That's an excellent one. That's what I was thinking.
Mm.
Addicted to the news, the illusion, there's no joy or happiness here. Addicted to the external world, addicted to ego being in charge, addicted to watching television, which is tell me my vision. Yeah, that would be an excellent sharing.
It's a little vignette. So maybe I'll record that. And that's the illusory world we live in. But you don't have to. You always have a choice. You don't have to watch the news. No one's forcing you to. You don't have to listen to all the rubbish that goes on and go, oh, that's real. And now, oh, it's very scary because there's all this. I mean, there's always chaos and confusion and difficulty in the world, isn't there? Has it ever been anything else? You watch the news, there's always going to be difficulty. Is the news ever, oh, everything's really happy, everything's really going well? No. They usually give you one story at the end, don't they? It's like the feel-good story for the day. Oh, well, let's have a little human interest story, and they find something that to kind of lighten it a bit. But 90% of it is just fairly dark. Or it's about sport, which is again illusion, win lose. Someone's won, someone's lost. Oh, this side lost, or this side's football is facing relegation. It's not going well for this club. It's not going well for that club. It's all illusion. Every last bit of it, and that's all Yeshua's asking us to see. Don't believe one shred of it, because it's all false. So therefore you can let it all go, and you must let it all go to know yourself. If you believe in any of that, then yourself is now being influenced. Your mind is under the influence of the ego, and you have a split mind, and you won't escape the matrix. So that, we'll do a movie study of the Matrix, because it's a fantastic movie to really highlight all of this. The social commentary in there is absolutely brilliant. What they're saying about our world, and it was made nearly 25 years ago, but it's still as relevant today, more relevant, because we've gone more into the Matrix and more into the digital age than when it was made. So that's a movie evening not to be missed. We'll do a live watching it together, and then I'll chat about it. I've got it on DVD, so they can't block it. Just remember what happened the last time we tried that. They just stopped us. The Matrix blocked it. The algorithm, YouTube's algorithm blocked it. Okay, so where are we?
Number 4, I think.
Yeah.
You want to do the original? Do you want to take this screen down a bit?
Yeah.
Number 4, I am the holy name of God himself.
The holy home.
Oh. I am the holy home of God himself. I am the holy aware home of perfect love itself. I am the heaven where his love resides. I am the state of pure formless awareness in which its love resides. I am his holy sinlessness itself, for my purity abides his own. I am its holy aware innocence itself, for in my purity lives its own. Okay.
Yeah, any thoughts on that? Change that.
No thoughts?
Good. Excellent. No thought, just an experience. So that holy aware innocence, if you look at this description here, this is what this this guy, Papaji, Punjaji or Papaji, experienced. Pure innocence. And when he's looked at by the guru with this intent gaze, and he's just seeing his self mirrored there, he realizes his own essential innocence, doesn't he?
Mm.
And that arises, his Christ self arises, and that's his awakening into that self, holy aware innocence itself. For in my purity lives its own. He's talking about the purification on a body level. So that's the interesting thing. It's like he could feel that now he's shifting into his other self. His body was changing because the body is a projection of the mind. And so the body is being purified, and that purification then would profoundly affect the body and the cells and everything. So like a regeneration, a rejuvenation of the body into the Christ self. Which is why often enlightened beings look different. You know, their body has a different quality from so-called ordinary people. It doesn't have the heaviness, the darkness. It's not carrying that heavy, dark, negative energy. Just light. When I met David Hoffmeister, it was like being stroked by a feather. It was such a nice feeling. It's like there's no one really there. It's like there's no heaviness. You know, there's no self really. Couldn't go, oh, there's David. You just got the sense there wasn't really a self there. It was just a presence. There was something. It was this light, kind of feathery light kind of presence there, which is lovely to be around. It's a lovely energy. No, and then had a contrasting experience with another so-called teacher of the course who had a very different, darker, contracted energy, and you felt the difference. It was like just very clearly. So it's showing you the difference between those two selves. Okay, so I mean, he's just saying exactly what we've studied in our lesson. I am the self. I am this extension. I'm innocent. Holy aware awareness. Okay, number 2.
Our use for words is almost over now. Our use for words is almost over now. Yet in the final days of this 1 year we gave to God together, you and I, we found a single purpose that we shared. Nice, isn't it? Yeah, in the final days of this 1 year, we gave to pure formless awareness of perfect love together. You and I, we found a single purpose that we shared. Been spoken to, isn't it?
So Yeshua's saying, you were with me. I was with you all along. We gave it together and we found a single purpose. And you can't help being moved by that. So he's been with you all the time. Saying, come on, you can do this. Follow me into this self, to discover yourself that you always have been. Just haven't realized it.
And thus you joined with me. So what I am, you are as well. Same below, isn't it? And so you joined with me. For what I am, you are as well. The truth of what we are is not for words to speak of nor describe.
So it's pretty much the same.
Okay?
Yet we can realize.
Yeah, we can realize our function here, and words can speak of this and teach it too, if we exemplify the words in us. Yet we can realize our function here, and if we live by the words in us, words can speak of this and teach it too.
Oh. So he's giving us a new purpose for the words. He's saying actually the words now will become your teaching tool. If you become aware of who you are, you don't really need words yourself necessarily, but the words can be very useful in speaking of this and teaching it, preparing us for our function as teachers of God. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we move on to number 3.
We are the bringers of salvation. We are the bringers of freedom. We accept our part as saviours of the world, which through our joint forgiveness is redeemed. We accept our part in the awakening of the world, which through our joint letting go is freed. And this our gift is therefore given to us. And this being our gift is therefore given to us. We look on everyone as brother and receive all things as kindly and as good. We look upon everyone as a companion and receive every event and circumstance as beneficial and good.
Perceive, it's perceive, not receive.
And perceive every event, yeah. Much the same. It feels the same to me.
Yeah, well, you are receiving it, aren't you, in your perception? So perceive, receive, interesting. They're quite very, very similar words, aren't they?
Yeah.
So perceive all things as kindly and as good. I mean, that is what he's talking about. He has a major transformation. All things as kindly and as good. Doesn't matter what seems to have happened, how terrible the event and circumstance seems to be. You must see it as beneficial and good because it's helping you to awaken. So that's the enlightened state. So you're invulnerable, bulletproof. Doesn't matter what happens. It's all good.
Yeah, even clutter.
Even the clutter, even chaos, death, disaster, wars, disease, and so on. It's all beneficial and good. Now, if the ego can't understand that, the ego is going to say that's impossible, because look at how can you make that? How can you make a war good? But it shows us, the war shows us our own conflicted state of mind. It shows us the split in our minds. So you look at the war in the Ukraine. If everyone healed their minds of the splits, the conflict would disappear. So that's the opportunity that's being held out to each person through that conflict. Okay, well, let me find peace within. Let me find my own inner peace by letting go of my ego, and then I will find peace irrespective of whether there's a war or not.
There's another clip.
Yeah.
A little chat about war.
Yeah. Well, it's still, remember we chatted about it a while ago, like
I know we did, but
time to go, okay, well, let's have some kind of spiritual approach to this war and end it, because it's just crazy to carry on. Just and what we try to do is solve the problem on the level of form. So what are the West doing? We've got to send in Leopard tanks, and I was listening to the news the other day. They're now arguing about, well, do we send in Leopard tanks? And it's like, no, the point is missed. The point is it's happening on a mental level. So actually go there to the real cause of it. The cause is the split in the mind. And so it can be healed at that level if enough people do it. And we stop believing in the illusion that, more weapons are going to sort it out. If everyone forgave Russia and Putin, the war would end. That's the truth of the matter. We know that's spiritually true, but it would be great to demonstrate it. Okay, everyone actually drop it. They're not the enemy, see? Because as long as you've got an enemy, then war seems justified, don't you? Doesn't it? So actually the Russians are not the enemy. They're our brothers and they're our friends. Well, the problem is no political leader is going to have the courage to say that, are they? Because they'd probably be hounded out of office. They'd be forced to resign if they said that. Because the ego's misperceptions are so entrenched that it couldn't take that. We go, no, they're the enemy. So yeah, it would be an interesting exercise if you got many people to change their minds and go, you know what, Putin is the Christ. He is the Christ in heavy disguise, but he is, and he's showing it to me. And if I can forgive him, then I can forgive everyone, and I can forgive everything. You see, because it's the extreme example. He's the Hitler of our times. You know, there's always a character, isn't there? He's going to be the epitome of the dark side of the ego. So if you can forgive him, then you can truly forgive. If you can't forgive him, then you can't forgive. You haven't really let it go.
Mm.
So that famous quote about, if you can't forgive Hitler, then you can't forgive it all.
Mm.
Quite a challenging quote, isn't it? It's like, whoa, okay, but that, because there's no order of difficulty in miracles, because there's no hierarchy of illusions. Whether someone is a, raving psychopath who's murdered millions of people in a Holocaust and caused a world war, or they're just your neighbor who is a bit obnoxious, it's the same illusion, which we've been asked to let go of completely. So yeah, maybe we'll do something with that. We'll see. Have a bit more time this year. It would be fascinating to try it. Okay, so well, we do not seek a function.
Let us do it on the alternative.
Hmm.
We do not seek a function that is past the beginning of pure formless awareness.
That's the gate of heaven, as he calls it.
Knowledge will return when we have done our part. We are concerned only with giving welcome to the truth.
Which is quite comforting. So what's he saying there, really?
Just focus on the truth. That's where the freedom is.
Yeah, and our function here is to let go. He's saying your function is forgiveness. Your function here is to let go of your misperceptions, of your belief in these illusions. And then knowledge will return when we've done our part. It will come, that pure formless awareness, the state of revelation, being beyond time and space entirely, will come when you've done your part. So there's a process to this. So it's okay. You're in time, seemingly human. That's okay. Just practice forgiveness. That's all you've got to do. Radical forgiveness, moment by moment, day by day. I mean, all we got to do, it's a big ask. It's a total transformation of the mind and perception. But that's concerned only with giving welcome to the truth. Forgiveness gives welcome to the truth. So you're still in the world, but you're no longer of it. And you're becoming less and less of it as you forgive it away, as you let it go. So that ultimately your mind is ready for knowledge, and the knowledge just returns. God takes the final step. He uses that metaphor as well. And you just merge, your mind merges back into that state of awareness, pure formless awareness, which is its true nature. And the dream is over. And then the body would be laid aside and you wouldn't come back because you just rest in that awareness for all eternity. But right now, our job is just to forgive or let go and be the miracle workers for the remainder of our lives here.
Can I just read the alternative, because I'm keeping an eye on the clock?
Yeah.
Ours are the eyes through which our true self's vision sees a world freed from every thought of sin. Ours are the ears that hear the voice of perfect love proclaim the world as innocent. Ours are the minds that join together as we bless the world. And from the oneness that we have attained, we call to all our companions, asking them to share our peace and confirm our joy. Confirm it? Do we need it confirmed?
Well, the original was consummate, which is actually a reference to consummation of a marriage by sexual intercourse, which was kind of interesting. So I thought, okay, well, maybe just change that to confirm our joy. So everything is just a confirmation, the external miracles. To share our peace and confirm our joy. It's a nice, it's like a bonus. You don't need it.
Yeah, okay.
If someone is in the joy with you, it's a confirmation of it. It's like, oh, that's really nice. It's nice to be in joy together. So it's like we're unmoved. Our self is unshakable and unmoved, but our self can appreciate when people join, and when there's this positive energy flowing, and it can go into a state of joy, which is like peace that's vibrantly alive, was Eckhart Tolle's description of it. Vibrantly alive peace. It can experience that. So this doesn't mean that you never have any fluctuations and changes. While you're still human, you will. But ideally, you want to be unmoved by the illusions, and what moves you maybe into a deeper state or a more joyful state is actually what's true. And so, you can now have this joyful experience with your companion, sharing in the connection and the oneness, and really enjoying that. So it's not like you can't enjoy yourself. In fact, this is saying you can enjoy yourself without opposite. You're allowing yourself to experience joy all the time. You really get this. And it's nice if you're in a spiritual community and you're joining together. There's a confirmation. Oh, okay, this feels really good because we're all doing it. And there's an energy field that you tap into that's helpful and beneficial. Now, you don't have to let go of that. You can just allow that, and you can go, okay, I'll just let that immerse myself in it, because it's a field of love, and it's actually enhancing my experience. Still temporary in time, but in time I can have this, extraordinary joyful experience that confirms that this joy is there, and that I can experience it all the time if I choose to. We could always be experiencing joy. That's the truth, because it is our natural state. But in practice, if you can experience peace, like a foundational peace, what I call foundational happiness, and then you have these moments where you go, wow, I'm actually really in joy, that's pretty good. Kind of a base state of peace with moments of joy, hopefully frequently punctuating it during the day. That's a pretty amazing state to live in, far beyond what most people are experiencing. And it sounds like you're probably experiencing a lot of that, foundational peace. And then every now and then there's like a miracle, and you go, oh, that's so, and the heart opens a bit, and you really feel it, and you connect, and it's like a little bit of a whoosh, and an extraordinary something, and then you drop back into peace, which is okay. You just, like, you're on cruise control, cruising in peace, and then every now and then, okay, you have a little spurt of the accelerator, and woo, a little rush of air, and because you're in a convertible with the top down, and like the air's just, what I mean. So you can still enjoy life, but you've got the foundational peace always. So like, oh, now I'm not at peace because I'm just kind of cruising and it's boring. It's like, no, that's okay. I'm on my journey. I'm cruising in my convertible. I'm looking at the scenery. I'm in peace. And then every now and then there's wow, okay, let's floor it and have a rush. And then you go back to peace. But
yeah, exactly. That's how it is. Yeah.
Extraordinary.
That foundational happiness is, yeah.
Mm.
Didn't think this existed.
And if you can stay there for the majority of the rest of your life, you're in the happy dream. And life, doesn't really get too much better than that, because the excitement of the ego is very short-lived. So the ego tells you, go seek excitement and pleasure, but without the foundational happiness, it's very short-lived. And then you're on the roller coaster of seeking pleasure, and then the downside of that is experiencing pain because you don't have the temporary pleasure. Whereas if you do this, you don't really need those pleasurable experiences. There's no need, you see, because you're already okay. But if you experience them, then it just enhances it, but not from a deficient sense of lack. So, oh, this is an enhancement of my true self. Oh, lovely. I experience joy. Oh, I just enjoy that experience. And again, it arises and it passes away. It doesn't last forever, but it's really nice while it lasts. And then I drop back into foundational peace. And that's okay. I'm quite happy there. In fact, too much, sustained joy might be a bit overwhelming. So it's like quite nice to just go back to peace. And like, we've all experienced that. You can have like, wow, amazing. And then it's like, okay, enough now, because it's that heightened state is too much. I need to kind of drop back into something a bit more normal.
I had that last night. Couldn't sleep. I was like, okay, enough.
Because you were in too much.
I was on a very high. Yeah, I was in a joyful state. I felt amazing, and like, there's no way you're going to sleep in that state.
But it's not really that sustainable, is it? Because it's like so heightened that you have to come down, but you come down to peace. That's not a bad place to be at all. Just rest in, a kind of peaceful awareness where nothing's really a problem. Everything's just peaceful, smooth. You're in flow. Life's just pleasant. It's kind of flowing along smoothly. And any challenges are just, you let go of them and you just stay in that peace. Okay, I don't move. Peace of your eternal self, punctuated by moments of joy, which will come. Inevitably, like you, and they will just come spontaneously. You can't manufacture joy. That's the thing. You can't manufacture it, can you? It's like, I can't like always, it will come. It'll arise when it's right. An experience will come. And that's the miraculous nature of life then, which is kind of nice because it's spontaneous. It's like, it just happens. And it's still in the illusion. It's still, things are fluctuating and changing. It's still interesting enough for us to be here. It's not just a flat line. That's it, one state, no movement, no emotion. I think that's what a lot of people think enlightenment is, and they feel a bit scared of that. Oh, that's just going to be so boring. But actually it's not. It's foundational peace, and then within that, these fluctuations, but really nice fluctuation. You don't get the ego's disastrous fluctuations. You get nice ones. It's like, that's just an enhancement. I'm feeling vibrantly alive. I'm so ecstatic. I'm feeling joy and I can't sleep. Okay, well, that's okay. I can go with that for a night. But then, tonight you probably go, okay, well, I just like to be in a state of calm and peace and go to sleep. Okay, well, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. And then it's living this. The beauty of this teaching is you live it and you become it. And so it's not a theory. It's not something you're just studying. It becomes the way you live. And I think that's what's happening with you, which is wonderful to see, because that's the whole point. That's the real transformation. Then you say it's a life changing. That's what it means. It's changed your life moment by moment. Your experience of life is completely transformed moment by moment because of this work that you've done. Okay, shall we finish off with the final paragraph?
Gonna have to whiz through this one because I've got to go.
Okay, well, it's only 5 sentences.
We are the wholly aware messengers of perfect peace who speak for it and carrying its message to everyone whom it has sent to us. We learnt that it is written on our hearts. So our minds are changed about the aim for which we came and choose to serve. We bring a happy message to the extension of perfect love, which thought it suffered. And now we are free. And as we become more and more aware of the state of pure formless awareness, we will enter fully into it, and our separated self-concept will disappear in this pure formless awareness of perfect love. Hooray! Perfect. I'm going to go nip straight off onto another call. All right then. Thank you ever so much.
Okay,
Namaste.
only a pleasure. Thanks
Bye.
for the chat before. I'll see you tomorrow. All right, so that brings us to the end of the session. Thanks for joining, everyone. Sally, Jackie, Aurelie, good session, and practice well. Practice today's lesson frequently to keep you in this state of being rooted in yourself, peace, foundational happiness and peace and joy that comes with that. Practice today's lesson by listening to the recording I've sent you if you're a member, short breath break, or follow the instructions I've given you in the Telegram message or email. So I wish you good practicing and a very present, connected, peaceful, and flowing day ahead. Namaste. Which means the peaceful Christ self in me honors that same peaceful, loving Christ self in you.